Hey, everybody, it's Mike Henson here along with
Annie ALS. Hi, everybody.
We're here today to do the first of many, we hope, live internet broadcasts, although this one's not technically live. I'm waiting on a super fast internet connection so that we can really do these right and do them often without any technical glitches. We are here today in a large part to discuss our brand upcoming documentary that many of you, let's see if I can find it here, that many of you have seen a trailer for so far. It's this Right to Try documentary that Annie and I are making. I am editing and posting as fast as my little fingers will go. Right now, the working title is not Right to Die. It's Go Home and Die, which is a controversial title, but ALS is a very difficult disease, and what this documentary will do is to speak about many of the challenges that we face. This documentary is not so much about the human element; those have been done. We feel already. What this documentary will focus on is the three best therapies that are currently available. Well, I say available, that we want to become available, but it is strictly a technical documentary. It is not a human story. It's not a sad story. It's a discussion of the three best therapies that currently exist, who some people have received, and the story behind why we can't get them. And Annie, why don't you add something to that? You'd said something before we went on air here, and I'd like for you to kind of start over. And why don't you explain what our goals were with this?
Yeah, I think our goals were finally to be able to share with the community. I think one of our problems in our community is we really don't have anywhere to actually share and to be able to be able to get across all the things that are available and why they're available and how they're available. And I feel like this documentary with, as everybody knows, what with Mike did with the CU-ATSM, close to 70,000 signatures. I mean, I think he proved right there and then that this community wants something, and we've really been denied a lot. And I think that this documentary and these internet our podcast, so to speak, I think that we'll finally feel like maybe we're united as a community. Maybe that we can all work on the same path to create the same goals. Because I get lots of emails and saying, so many wonderful, wonderful people saying, Annie, how can we help you? And Mike, what can we do from our end of the world? And it got me thinking, it got Mike and I thinking a lot that one thing that we as ALS patients and caregivers and family who have lost patients, and we have technology, and that's sort of it's changed the game for us in a sense, in more ways than just keeping people alive. It's changed the way we can communicate. And so finally our voices can be heard, we can share information, we can actually present it to you in a way that in your home so that you can see it, so that you can feel it, so that you can know how to get involved. And so I think that that's something that's been terribly, terribly missing in our community, is maybe just little snippets here and there is all we can do on Facebook, on Twitter. And although that's been wonderful, I think that we need a place that we can actually have discussions and about things and actually be able to really hear our voices.
Well,
So I think that's what the documentary is going to do.
I believe you're right, and it's really going to focus again more on technical issues. As a former business person myself, and anybody that's owned a business, many of you have, that problem solving is a very key aspect of owning a business. And I think Annie and I felt like one of the weaknesses in the ALS community, frankly, has been that we don't have one cohesive place where the technology updates are happening. The ALS, the battle about ALS, there, of course, is a human side to it, but there's also a technical side. And for me, when I was diagnosed in March of 2018, what I began to realize is that there did not appear to be any cohesive strategy on how to actually put drugs into bodies. And for Annie and I, the primary point is letting you all know what's out there. What are the best hopes? Why were these best hopes not funded? We're not looking to assign blame. That's not the goal of what we're doing. Annie's been kind of accused of being kind of an instigator, and that's really not true. The bottom line is that $220 million was raised, worldwide with the Ice Bucket Challenge. Now, much of that was in the local arena, but also national received a tremendous amount of money. And so when I was diagnosed, we all go into that kind of dark space for a while, and then we come out and we realize, well, wait a minute, why do we not have any real viable therapies yet in this industry? Here's a slide that shows, the American Cancer Society has had 47 Nobel Prize winners in medicine, and ALS has had 0. And I don't think that it's lack of trying. I just really believe that as we dive into this, you're going to find out that it's more of a strategic mistake, that the reason that we don't have Nobel Prize winners is not because we don't have smart people doing this. It's because, you've got to at a certain point begin to focus, on therapies. And Annie and I always say it's like this: if your house is on fire, you don't call the arson investigator first. You call the fire department. You put the fire out. And I think for too long, the focus has been on, let's try to find the why. And for a long time that was understandable. But our research and what we were doing focuses more on the last 5 years. In other words, the time between when that incredible amount of money was raised by people's generosity. Many of you watching this, thank you so much for what you did. And we want to help you hold the people accountable who control that money, and to say, let's get therapies on the market, period. And Annie and I feel like there are 3 therapies right now that could be done quickly, efficiently. One of them could be done almost immediately. The other one is being done, except we obviously can't get to it yet. And the third one is more tricky, but it certainly works. So right now, I guess the point, Annie, and I'll let you jump in here, but the point we're making is that right now there are 3 therapies that, used together or alone, we want to make this bold statement that today, in 2019, in March of 2019, ALS, for the very first time, is stoppable. It is reversible in some cases, and we're going to prove all of this to you. This is not speculation, but the bottom line is right now is that ALS is no longer an untreatable or incurable disease. And Andy, do you want to talk a little bit about the difference between a cure, maybe, and what is the hang up? Why are people afraid to use that term, and what does it mean to different people, perhaps?
Right. I think that that's something that we've always, we've never been able to even give a touch to a cure or treatment. So we've kind of just shut the door on anything, looking for the everything. And I think AIDS,
Yes.
they taught us a lot about, the community taught us a lot about cocktails. I think they were really the first community that came along and said, maybe this one thing it isn't going to be the silver bullet. Maybe this and this and this are going to be a part of the cure. And the only way we're going to get to any of the part of that cure is synergy. We will never get past step A if we don't start thinking, okay, if we do A, we do B, we do C, we might find out what causes this darn disease, how we can stop it, and on the way, we'll make a ton of awareness that's going to create such a synergy in the world to cure this disease, because I don't think we've never seen anything that can actually reverse points on people with ALS.
That's exactly right.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what's happening right now, and that it really is real. This has been met with much speculation, and I can understand that, because for years it's been failure after failure after failure. But what we're seeing now is that for the first time, people are actually showing a regression of ALS symptoms, which is shocking. And at one time, it's a fluke. Twice, you could call it maybe 3 or 4 times, and you begin to have to start to say, maybe somebody's doing something right here. Supposedly there's been 39 reversals. We've all heard those stories, but yet those were not really medically assisted per se. Some of them were disease-based like fungal and the infectious-based. But for the first time now, we have a man, and you're going to meet him in the documentary. It's incredible. This man has a reversal from a Duke neurologist that many of you are familiar with. I'm not going to give away too much yet, but his words in the documentary from the doctor is, I think you may have stumbled on a cure for ALS. And I cannot argue with his results, people. This guy is not a crazy man. He is a phenomenally successful businessman. I mean, when you meet this gentleman, I think you're going to be surprised. And so much of this is in the documentary. Again, I don't want to give too much of it away, but I tell you what, let's focus, Annie. Let's go over these three hopes, these three therapies, and let's start with the very first one, which you mentioned earlier was kind of the effort that I had led. This is a drug, a copper-based drug called CU-ATSM. It was kind of theorized by a man named Joseph Beckman out of Oregon State, and he's a really smart guy. He's an interesting guy. He's a very ordinary kind of gentleman, and he came up with this. This is the company that's pushing this drug is Collaborative Medicinal Development. They are the people who have what's called a license agreement for a drug called Procipra, or it's actually CU-ATSM. It's copper with an ATSM chaperone. The ATSM is a Japanese invention. It's been around for years. This drug has already been proven safe. There's no argument now to be made about the safety of this drug. And here's the company's own press release, Annie. And I want you to take a look at a couple of very important things on here. And notice the date also. This was very recent, from 2019, yeah. After the phase 1 trial was completed, and it was done down in Australia. And I want people to read this, carefully. The bottom line is that CU-ATSM works. It slows down ALS by addressing one of the core issues of copper deficiency in the misfolded proteins. We also believe that it may have a contact kill effect, secondary effect on fungus and that kind of thing. But the bottom line is that it works over 24 weeks. Okay, at the recommended dose that they're going to try to do in phase 2, which is coming up at some point, which is 72 milligrams per day. Okay, this drug slowed ALS down by about 30%. Okay, and that's measurable through the ALS-FRS score, 30%. Now, I also want you to notice something that's not on this press release, but is in a video you're going to see in a moment, that at 144 milligrams per day, 144 per day, the drug slowed the progression of ALS down by 70%. 70%. So to the people out there that say, we're not sure about this or whatever, listen, the results on this drug are more than enough. The safety profile is more than safe enough. This company needs to begin to make and sell this drug immediately for ALS. There is no longer any reason to withhold this drug from people who are badly in need of it. And I think what I'll do now is I'll roll this little video for you. Let's just see what, and again, don't take anything that we're saying at face value. Let's just see what the Australians are saying about this drug. So let's play this video, Annie, and let's come back, okay?
A collaboration of scientists here in Melbourne have developed a drug known as copper ATSM that in a phase 1 human trial appears to have slowed progression of the disease.
I don't want to overhype it. Yes, we're very, very happy. The results could not be better.
Professor Ashley Bush from the Florey Institute says it's a significant development in the search for a treatment.
We hope that maybe we've hit the nail on the head, and if we treat early enough, that we might be able to stop it completely from deteriorating. We don't know yet.
In motor neurone disease, brain cells that control movement are compromised, resulting in debilitating muscle weakness, paralysis and respiratory failure within just a few years. For the initial trial, 32 MND patients were given the drug for 6 months. Significant recovery of lung function and cognition has been reported so far.
The disease on average was slowed by about 70%.
Wow.
Did you hear 70%?
70%. I heard it loud and clear.
He does misspeak there a little bit. It wasn't an average of 70%. It was more of an average of 30% over 24 weeks. But when people took it for 6 months at 144 milligrams, it was 70% average. So what we're finding is that the dose is linear. It's dependent on, or the results are dose dependent, and they seem to be linear. The question is, how much could you take before it becomes, toxic? And we don't know the answer to that question. But, frankly, I don't care. I'm ready to take it right now. I mean, I don't know about you, Annie, but tell us what you think this would mean to the ALS community.
I think that this could actually change ALS quickly from being called a rare disease to a chronic or treatable disease, and that changes everything. When you add 2 years, I think we've done the research before, but if you add 2 years onto people's lives, I think it becomes off the rare disease chart in such a quick time that it blows your mind. Right now, ALS is about as common as multiple sclerosis, which probably most of the population doesn't realize. The only difference is time on Earth. So right now, anything to slow ALS would change the game in so many ways, because not only would it give our wonderful people a chance to fight, a chance to not just be measured on decline, be measured on success. It would give a whole new opportunity in this whole field of ALS medicine, because then you're opening up the world to opportunity.
Well,
and that's what's kept a lot of people out of the ALS field. A lot of researchers, companies have got out of the field because there's just no open door, and it opens a door.
You're right, and think about the
door
difference
to so much
about a person diagnosed early with ALS. Think about the difference 70% reduction would make. It means that instead of a doctor literally would say you have 3 years to live, now you have almost a decade to live. Okay, maybe in combination with some of these other things. Now we know Radicava. Well, I don't want to get into Radicava very much. I think we all know how that's proven itself to be effective. Okay, but the bottom line on this drug is that it can be made very inexpensively. And in the documentary, you're actually going to hear Dr. Beckman, and I believe he's going to regret saying this, but he actually says the drug. He actually says that this is not an expensive biological. It's not going to cost $100,000. I mean, I think he really said some things. He's a regular guy. Look, he doesn't know how to play the big pharma game. Okay, he actually said this drug is cheap, it's easy to make, and it won't cost $100,000. I mean, how often do you hear these kind of statements? Let me show you now, though. This is the letter I got back from K. Noel, PhD, COO of Collaborative Medicinal Development, where when I wrote my initial letter that you all thank you for signing this petition that I made, this was part of that battle. And it says, I'm very sorry to hear about your diagnosis. And then it says kind of some of the typical ALS. There's a lot of fluff in ALS, isn't there, Annie? But it gets into
a lot of bureaucracy,
a lot, just a lot of the same stuff, But then it does get into the meat here. At this early stage, however, our preliminary results are not yet definitive, and we are not in a regulatory or practical position to be able to offer CU-ATSM. Now, that is a false statement. Okay, the results are definitive. Okay, they are in a regulatory position to be able to offer it. All they have to do is apply for right to try status, and the drug could immediately, and I believe it would be granted immediate approval under right to try, at least in smaller doses at first. Remember, Radicava was given expedited status. Although it took 13 years to get Radicava to market. Are we going to wait 13 years for CU-ATSM, a drug that has already been on the market under the name Precipra for a decade as a PET scan material? I mean, this is kind of some of the insanity that we're dealing with. And as we look at this letter, this is a letter from a researcher on the drug. This is a key letter, or a key researcher, from Dr. Peter Crouch. And he is one of the people also in the documentary. Now, I did not interview him, but he made a statement in the documentary. Look at what he says. Look at what he says here, Annie. We have had unprecedented success with CU-ATSM to date. In comparable head-to-head studies, no other drug has proven to be as promising as CU-ATSM, because they attacked a line of investigation that most people dismiss. Okay, and that sounds great, doesn't it? I mean, this is not the time to rush things or deviate from a course of action that has been 10 years in the making. Okay, so there is no urgency in this battle. None. Now, he further goes on to say, and this is sad, this is just sad, this is the ultimate issue. Quote, most people with a current diagnosis of ALS will not survive to see the clinical or completion of clinical testing of CU-ATSM. He is literally telling you, just be quiet, we got this, and you're going to die before it comes to market. Well, I'll tell you something right now. We'll see about that. We'll see about that. It's unacceptable. You just hit the nail right on the head. That's the one word. These people need to understand that this is no joke. This is not diabetes, okay? This is not high blood pressure. ALS is not the type of disease that we need to be running double-blind placebo trials on, okay? It is incomprehensible to me that we would use human beings who have a fatal disease as lab rats, and we literally use them to watch some of them die while some of them live. And I want to be clear, it's not the companies that are doing this, okay? This is part of the FDA process that must be changed for ALS. And filing a right to try, application will eliminate several things. One, it offers liability protection for these companies. And two, it allows a company who has a product that's passed a phase 1 safety trial, that is in there, you have to pass a phase 1 safety trial, to begin immediately selling that, or to apply for right to try and begin to sell their product. Why don't you tell us about one person right now, Annie, who is actually using the right to try law and is seeing a incredibly positive result from it?
Yeah, as a lot of the ALS community knows, but the world at large doesn't, Navy pilot Matt Bellina has been the first person to use the right to try law for a drug called NurOwn, which comes from a company called Brainstorm Therapeutics. And he has shown incredible results. His breathing, his leaders, and if most people think of the leaders when you have a forced vital capacity test, his was at 2.4 liters. He had suffered some pneumonia. His lumbar was low. Basically, that's what ALS does to you. His most recent forced vital capacity was 3.8 liters.
Wow.
And that is, in ALS, as all of us unfortunately are aware, that is probably one of the most, it probably stops most of us in our tracks just to see that kind of change for him. Maybe to the general public, it would appear as numbers, but to those of us in the ALS community at large, it appears as a miracle. I mean, I don't even know any other way that you could describe the success that
absolutely
has given him.
No question.
Just imagine, this medicine that has been available for a very long time. If we are still in horrific double-blind placebo studies with this, which
That's
means
right.
half the people that get in the study get nothing. And I don't even know how we can say that, how that even is able to even be in the society that we're at right now, that's even allowed
Right.
in ALS, like you said, with a fatal terminal disease, how they could even think of a placebo effect.
That's
when
right.
the writing is
Well,
life and death.
It's literally on the wall. If you look at this, article from December of 2016. This is over 2 years ago. This is the phase 2 trial results from NurOwn. I want to make one thing clear. Notice the date on this, Annie. But NurOwn in their phase 2 trial results, okay, were already better than Radicava. Okay, I want to put this up on the screen right now for everybody to see. This is a summary of the phase 2 trial results for NurOwn. I want you to specifically notice the blue box. In addition, the results revealed that a greater number of patients treated with NurOwn achieved a high threshold of 100% improvement in post-treatment versus pre-treatment slope, compared with the placebo group. Now, to all you people who say, well, the placebo effect, okay, yes, there is placebo effect. I'm not here to argue with that. But we know from the NurOwn trial, and NurOwn even says this, that after 4 months, the placebo effect they noticed was gone. After 4 months, it separated the boys from the men, so to speak. The real people who were getting the real drug versus the placebo effect disappeared at 4 months. What's crazy is that NurOwn even works better on the faster progressors. We're also discovering that. What we seem to be discovering is that the first treatment has a huge impact, the second treatment not so much, and then the third treatment, as inflammation in the body gets controlled, becomes kind of the icing on the cake. Now you'll notice the red mark. The results showed specifically that the CSF samples that were collected from patients treated with NurOwn, there were significant increases in the levels of neuroprotective factors and the reduction in inflammatory disease markers. Now, Annie, what we know is about ALS now is that ALS is a devastating central nervous system feedback loop. Once it gets going, although many of these natural homeopathic things can slow it down, and that's a whole nother area of discussion, which we won't really focus much on here because we're going to stick straight to what we call the mainstream medicine. But I believe it does help. Okay, I'm not going to argue with that. But the bottom line is that what the NurOwn and the stem cells, the autologous stem cells, seem to do is they seem to have the ability to break that feedback loop and to slow the disease down. And not only that, to allow the body to reverse the symptoms of the disease. Okay, I want to go back to this for one moment in the green box where it says, quote, importantly, there is evidence that NurOwn may be halting disease progression or improving symptoms in some patients. Okay? Now, what we have to understand, Annie, is that this article is over 2.5 years old. 2.5 years this information has been out there, and yet NurOwn has received not one dime of funding from the organization that claims to be interested in curing this disease. Not one. They've been chasing money for this since 2012 or even before, I think, right? I mean,
even before, yeah.
Now people will say, what do they always say? Well, they didn't ask for the money. Did they?
Oh, they absolutely did. Absolutely, they did. They begged for the money.
Right? Now, are you sure about that? Do we need to show this letter? People, do we need to show to you that back this letter was written in 2018 when they were trying to get money for phase 3 to Mrs. Colony Ballas, our brand new CEO of ALSA. Please give us money. Please, we're begging you to give us money. This letter was signed by Chaim Leibovitz, the CEO, and the wonderful Mrs. Mary Kay Turner, who has been a fantastic representative for her company. Okay? I want to make it clear, Annie and I love NurOwn. We are in no way, shape, or form blaming them for any of these extraordinary circumstances that they're having to deal with.
Absolutely
But
not.
Listen to this last statement. We respectfully decline to apply for this as we do not see how this level of funding can have a meaningful impact on the phase 3 NurOwn clinical development program. Okay? Now, what does that say about an organization who loves to give people enough gas money to drive halfway across the desert? Okay? And we're not the only ones that say this. Also has taken severe criticism from other people about how much or how little money they are willing to offer these companies to do these things. And we see things like this. Whenever you challenge them, they give you something like this back. You know, boy, it looks impressive, doesn't it? Even in the top right, FDA drug approved for ALS. They're talking about Tiglatech, and look what it says, not funded by the ALS Association. I mean, people, listen, again, we're not here to bash one particular organization. We're here to tell you that for the first time in history, that ALS is now a treatable disease, okay? The bottom line is this, is that if we could have access to some of these treatments, okay, the difference would be absolutely life-changing. Life-changing. There is no reason at this point to withhold treatments from us and not to fund these things when when we have an organization that has very little urgency, it seems, and who continues to spend money on things like $1.5 million for conferences at hotels in Arizona. Okay?
And that's just national conference. That's just what the national spent.
Annie, you are the expert
on the conferences.
On also. You've been here, since day one, frankly. And, I want you to tell everybody what would help right now for what could also do to help us to get some of these things into our bodies.
They could absolutely step up. I mean, they have the bully pulpit. They've had it. They've had the opportunity. They benefited greatly from the Ice Bucket Challenge. They were the ones that basically, kit and caboodle. They basically, got full board to do everything they could for us.
Can you see this? Can you see this graphic on the screen? Why don't you explain what that means?
Yeah, this is showing you that as of today, and we are almost 5 years since the Ice Bucket Challenge, there is still $82 million in unrestricted net assets. And I get teary-eyed when I think of all the friends and family that I've known over the years that have waited desperately for the 2 years that it will take for them to be able to try something, or the 2 years for them to be able to see some hope, and to know that the world all dumped ice on their heads, thinking that, for frankly, most of the people that I meet tell me, what do you mean ALS isn't cured? I thought we dumped our ice on our heads and we cured that. And
right.
I cannot imagine that there are things available now that, if put into patients, that could create a start of a whole new industry for just helping us. We don't even get the chance right now for help. At the way it's going now, we've been basically, like I said, we've been told to go home and measure our decline.
Right.
And the disease is so heterogeneous, so that everybody is different, so that we've looked for one thing as opposed to we've got to have tons of things available. And the only way we're going to get those things available is if they're funded, and if there's urgent movement. There's a house on fire.
That's right, and not just funded, but funded adequately. Okay, I want people to take a look really quick at this one document that I just put up here. Read the bottom of this. 58 research grants. This is ALS News Today, where somebody I'm not sure if this was Lucy Bruhin, the old medical director, yes, or if this was Miss Ballas, I'm not sure, but it was one of the two, where they were asked a question. It says, how can any of the 58 research grants receive impactful funding at less than $200,000 per grant? Okay, now that is one heck of a question when you have a drug that is reversing the symptoms of ALS right now, and not a new drug, a drug that's been around since 2010. And the answer was, kind of what they tend to do, a blank answer, the standard form answer. Our strategy is to invest in multiple projects in the hope that a few will yield significant results. Okay, investing all the money in only a handful of projects may result in nothing to show for our investment. Now let me ask every one of you all out there right now a question. What do we have to show so far? What do we have to show? The only thing that's going to fix this disease is to pick the best hopes and to superfund those. We were given from God, I believe, $200 million from the most generous people in the world to finally fix this disease. And what have we done with it? It has sat in the bank and it's collecting interest. And it was in Bank of America initially. They moved it around a little bit. People, listen, these things have to be funded, and they have to be funded right now. We have to put the hammer down. Now is the time. Listen, before the Ice Bucket Challenge happened, and before these new therapies became viable working therapies, I could understand to some extent the reason that, and I'll put this slide up here for you, the reason kind of that also had a what I like to call a shotgun approach to research, and this is it. Take a look at this. Here's where a lot of the money has gone from also over the years. 500 grand, 1.3 million, 5 million, 1 million, 2.5 million, 1.9 million, 500,000, 2.5 million, 10 million, 2.5 million, 5 million, 1 million, $50,000, and yet, NurOwn, zero. I mean, people, I don't know what to say to that. I don't know what to say to that other than we can fix it. Okay, we can fix this. It's not too late, and that's what I'm getting at. Is right now things could be done. ALSA still has the bully pulpit. They could go to to DC, and they could actually. I'm sure they could get a meeting with the President of the United States, with what little political capital they have and credibility at this point, and say, listen, Mr. President, please, will you help us approve this one drug? Do something for us. If the president were to hear about this argument, I guarantee you he would love to be the man that is credited with finally breaking these stupid barriers down and just getting these products on the market. It takes a person willing to say, you know what, let's stop treating ALS like diabetes. Let's kick the doors down. Let's roll the grenade in the room full of regulations and pull the pin, okay? We'll pull the pin first before you roll it in there. But do it. Just whatever it takes, do it.
He and the Speaker of the House, and I believe everybody I believe we could so unite on this. I believe that it could unite our country like nothing else, because ALS has killed millions. It's killed children. It's killed servicemen. It's killed the everyday mom, the everyday father. I mean, you cannot tell me that if the world would know, if the United States of America would know that there is a chance, that you can't tell me that maybe Nancy and Chuck and
that's right,
and the president and the vice president, that they couldn't unite on this and say,
that's right.
You know what? ALS hits both sides of our aisle.
It sure does.
It is an equal opportunity disease, and it hits some of the best among us with veterans and sports heroes and
that's right,
people like Steve Gleason and people like, so many that we've lost, so many wonderful people that
it should be the ultimate
loss.
It should be the ultimate bipartisan issue, but yet it's not. Unfortunately, and we want to bring everybody together to understand that. Listen, this disease, nobody is opposed to fixing ALS. I mean, it's what the president was able to do with the help of your friend Trickett and with Matthew Bellina and these people. I can't say everybody. I'm sorry, I'm going to leave people out, so I don't want to name specific names. But yeah, exactly. That right to try battle was harder than it should have been. It was not bipartisanly proved. It should have been. It is right now saving Matt Bellina's life, period. And it's proof that we must take these bold steps to do this. And I urge NurOwn to ignore the Twitter trolls. They took a lot of heat for that because what was it labeled? The rich man's drug, which is ridiculous. Right. They just getting that drug out there first is the first step. Getting the VA
It's a huge step.
to buy on it. It would be a huge step. Now let's look
Would
at
be
this.
amazing.
Oh, it would. And I want to show you this quickly, this last thing on NurOwn before we move on to the last and final of the three. But it's important because NurOwn is attainable. This one is really worth pushing hard for because we could get it. We could get it done for this generation of pals. But look at the history here on NurOwn. Annie, it goes all the way back to 2010.
Yeah.
2000.
My sister found a letter. She found a letter that I wrote to ALSA in 2010. She was going through her paperwork the other day, and she found a letter that I had written to ALSA. I believe back then we've been through, I think, 3 CEOs since then, and she found a letter that I wrote asking, begging them to look into this,
Right.
because her and I just thought then that, this might really. And even if it didn't, please just look into it and maybe get some funding into it because maybe it could lead to other things.
Right.
And we were kind of, for better or worse, for lack of a better, I was given the bureaucratic answer of we basically don't, at that time, we don't have the money for it. And I celebrated I thought finally in 2014 that
we don't have the money for it.
That we did have the money for it. And I always think to myself, and I know, people could say that that's a negative thing, but I often think to myself, if the money would have started in 2010 rolling into something like NurOwn or CU-ATSM or Dr. Appel, imagine the growth that would have come as the world realized that they could help us.
How much did ALSA fund CU-ATSM with, Annie?
The national gave them $0. The local Portland chapter gave $300,000 and bless those people from Oregon that gave, but national
300 grand. 300 grand. So let's summarize this really quickly. $300,000 between the top 2 best hopes right now. $300,000. The cost of one NurOwn treatment, right to try. And I don't know what else to say about that, frankly. So I think it's just best if you and I avoid really saying anything else about that at this point, because I think people can make their own judgment on that. I want to show people this lovely gentleman right here. He's in the documentary. This is when we filmed his portion of the documentary. This is a gentleman named Mark Bedwell who lives in Arkansas. And he has taken some unbelievable flack for his role in NurOwn. He is complete with the trial now. And I'm just going to let the video that in the documentary speak for itself about his results, okay? Listen, people, this is no joke. We're talking about life and death here, okay? This crap has got to be approved, and it's got to be done right now. We cannot continue to waste any more time on putting out the fire. We don't need to waste more time on the why, okay? We know enough about ALS right now to create some therapies that can make a difference in this disease. We can always go back. We can always go back and figure out the why once we know how to stop it. Think about cancer. Again, all those Nobel Prize winners all their work combined is now literally pulling people with stage 4 cancer out of the grave because they have therapies. HIV, over 100 different therapies available for HIV. It's not going to be one magic drug that fixes ALS. Okay? It's going to be a cocktail, like we've always said since day one. It's going to be a cocktail. It's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 things. And frankly, living well, eating well, being healthy is going to be one of those things. But it's not enough. We need these therapies to come out, and we need them now. Okay? We have, and I want to bring one thing up here really quickly. We have people that are working for us that, are taking $8 million a year in compensatory expense. And we cannot get NurOwn approved with a single dollar of the money that was raised for Ice Bucket Challenge, okay? Listen, again, and I'm sorry, Annie, you know, I mean, we get fired up when we talk about this, but I want people to know that this is fixable, okay? This can be fixed. And I know many of you are at home, you're bedridden, and just like I will be one day, unless something changes. We're all going down the same path here. Annie too. So this can be fixed. And we do not want to be the generation of pals that crashes on the last corner of the race, or the ones that run out of gas, you know, when we see the finish line. Because I can see the finish line right now. I don't know if you guys can yet, but Annie and I can. At least we can see the finish line. At least we can see pit road.
We see light.
We can, we can get our cars fixed. Okay, we can see treatment at the end of the road here. And the bottom line is that we're going to say one more thing now about this last treatment. We didn't spend much time on it because it is more difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. The third and final potential therapy that, again, to ALSA's credit, they did a slightly better job of funding, but it is a man down in Houston named Dr. Stanley Appel, the greatest, I think, widely regarded as ALS doctor in the world. He's 85 years old. He has a procedure called the T-reg procedure, which he takes, leukapheresis. Basically, it's like taking blood out. They separate the CD4 plus T cells. They isolate them. They make them healthy again. They treat them with a special chemical made from MD Anderson. They put them back in your body at 30% more than a healthy human being. And guess what, people? It works. Here's another procedure that stops the progression of ALS, okay? Don't take my word for it. Annie and I are not making this stuff up, okay? An article from the Houston Chronicle. Now, I am also a patient of Dr. Appel, okay? So I want you to keep that in mind. I'm not going to put words in his staff's mouth. I don't think I need to. Just look at the article. Gentleman named Larry Bradley was in phase 1. By the way, there was only enough money for 3 people in phase 1, much of which came from the Conair hairdryer family, by the way, but let's not get hung up on that. He got infusions from January to June in 2016, and again, all the way up to 2017, okay? 4 times, once per quarter. What does it say there, Annie? Both times, it stopped the progression of his ALS. Does that say stopped?
It absolutely says stopped.
Is stopping progression a cure to some people? I mean, if you're in good shape, if you're newly diagnosed, when you guys first got diagnosed, if you could have had this procedure and stopped your progression, would you consider that a failure because it didn't return you back to your 25-year-old body? No. It's a cure. Okay? Stopping the progression of ALS early in life, to me, is a cure. Okay? I mean, here we have this.
It's years. It's years for other things. Then it's years for people to learn what ALS is finally in the world, and then see ALS, and be able to talk about ALS. And you know what that does? That creates funding. And when people talk about ALS and they know about ALS, that creates advocates.
That's right.
And you know what one person who stopped progression creates? It creates advocacy. It creates a survivor. And you know what a survivor does? A survivor creates a network. It's something we were never able to ever do. We've never, ever, ever been granted a survivor. So without a survivor, you have a group of people that are in charge of us who get a new group of people every couple years to get donations from.
Correct.
They don't have a reputation to perceive. They don't have one to hold up. They get new patients. But when you create survivors, what you create is accountability. And then you change the game totally.
I think what you just said.
So if we get one person to survive.
What you just said is epic because it requires then answering the question. And I think this is what we're finding out right now is that there's some pretty uncomfortable questions being asked right now, aren't there, of the people that claim to have our best interest at heart. Many of you, we've seen them. Annie gets tens of emails a day, probably 100. I don't know. It's ridiculous. I'm glad I'm not getting them all because I don't think my inbox could handle them. What she's seeing right now is your action. It's your beginning to ask hard questions And by the way, we have a right to ask those questions, okay? People are raising money in your name, in my name. And when I read things like this, let's look at this last thing and then we'll get out of here, Annie. But look at this from Dr. Appel. At the top here, it says other researchers were initially skeptical, okay, arguing that any benefit from an infusion of normalized T cells wouldn't last long because the problem was the environment. Back in the ALS patients, it'd only be a matter of time before the cells reverted to a dysfunctional state. Okay. Now, let me ask people this. Who the hell cares? I mean, what you do is you just do it. You do it 3 or 4 more times. You do it, you go in once a month, okay, and you get a treatment. Is that a failure? Because it doesn't cure ALS with one shot or one pill? Listen, people, ALS is complicated. It's going to take a multitude of things to fix ALS. People blow my mind when they say, well, that's not going to last, or you're going to have to keep getting. So what? Okay, that's the thing. People are shooting down these therapies because they're not perfect yet. The thought process there is ridiculous, right?
Give them a chance to be perfect.
Right.
Give them a chance to get perfect.
Get them in the bodies,
That's
right?
That's what I always say.
Absolutely. And look what...
Give them a chance to create perfection.
Look what Dr. Appel says at the bottom. I mean, Appel considers the T-reg immunotherapy as great hope. Now, this is a man that's been working on this for 85 years, or not 85 years, his entire career. He's 85 years old. He used to work with Jerry Lewis, right, in the MDA. He was an MDA guy. Look what he says.
Every year with his bow tie.
Yeah, his little bow tie. He's busy planning. He's busy planning a phase 2 trial to be conducted at Methodist and Harvard to see if the therapy works better than a placebo. Okay, there's the P word again. I want to tell you something. This trial, this phase 2 trial, I did not get in. I wasn't happy about it. I thought I might. But this phase 2 trial, Annie, what it's going to do is it's going to prove that it works even more, okay? I'm sure there'll be people that say, oh, it doesn't work. He's going to do it once a month instead of once a quarter. So it's going to be even better. He could only get enough money to take 12 people, 6 in Boston, 6 in Houston. Also has donated about $3.2 million to Dr. Appel's efforts thus far. $3.2 million, which sounds great until you realize that it's blown much more than that on drugs. Not more on that than tirasemtiv, but it has funded phase 3 trials before. Let's just get the cat out of the bag, okay? It says it didn't. We know it has. We have the documents. It's not a secret. $3.2 million, I believe. It could be 3.4, 3.5. I can't tell you exactly. But why was Dr. Appel, the greatest ALS doctor in the world, why did he have to go to Conair hair dryers to get money for a trial for 3 people? And I'll just say this. It goes back to this strategy of only giving enough money to people who, so they go halfway across the desert. My question is, and this, I'm not making an accusation here, okay? I'm not. But why do some people seem to be getting more money to do these things than other people? Okay, this is a legitimate question, Annie, and I think it's one that also could go a long way to answer. Okay, right. I think transparency is kind of the buzzword of the century. I want some transparency. I would love for also to issue a statement of no conflict, that that everybody has an equal shot at getting this money, and that I would also ask them to please stop giving money to brand new young scientists. Scholarships for these kids. They're given. I mean, again, this will all be in the documentary. I don't have it in front of me right now, but why are we giving money to people to start all over on this when we have 3 therapies right now that could be given to people if we could kick these doors down? I'm telling you, if you have ALS right now today, you could be treated, okay? It's time that we tell the truth. It's time that we start to think like winners. And we can beat this. Right. We can beat this. But it's going to take some noise, and it's going to take being willing to talk to each other without being offended. Okay. I know that Annie's taken so much heat in the past, and trust me, I'm taking some too, and that's fine. We're not being personal about this. This is life and death. Let's be willing to have hard discussions about ALS and about where your money's going, okay, without being all offended. Let's start asking for some accountability. I don't think that's too much to answer. I mean, Annie, let's say our final words, and then I'm going to let you go first. And let's sign out for today, and then we'll go from there.
I totally agree with what you said, Mike, is we are all on the same team. We are all on the team of we've either lost somebody, we've lost other people, we've lost many, we're losing somebody. We're all on the same team, all of us, all the pals and cows, and we should all be working as one to ask the tough questions because, to be honest, we haven't had urgency. We haven't had our house is on fire and we need to put it out. And I think it's time that we ask the hard questions, and they don't need to be personal attacks. This isn't personal. This is ask why and how we can fix it, because we have some answers now. We have some things on the table that could put us in a position that all the people who dumped the ice over think we're in, that the position that they think the disease is cured. Let's make them right about this. I believe that if we started getting these therapies into us, it would open a whole level of medicine. 157 treatments for AIDS now. Let's make 157 for ALS, because it surely comes in 57 different varieties. So
That's
let's
right.
start ask the hard questions, you guys, and you guys are the most amazing group of people. Continue to be so.
Well, and you're the most amazing leader that they've had. I know. Funny you say that about HIV. Tell them what it was that created the last two known cures, medical cures.
Yeah, it was bone marrow, and it's amazing. And what is NurOwn? Bone marrow.
I mean, what else? What else do you need to really say about that? Listen, I'm gonna sign off now for us, and I want to thank all of you for, first of all, your incredible help with our with the petition. Annie was telling me that 70,000 signatures is a lot in the ALS world, and I didn't really realize that. I thought, well, it's short. I was hoping it'd be 100,000, 200,000, but the bottom line is it did make some noise. We
unheard of.
Yeah, we still have the possibility of Fox and Friends pretty soon. There's so many things going on, and many of you have emailed me saying, what can we do? And I do apologize for not getting back with you, but please understand that my effort right now is 100% to get this documentary out, and because there's really not much I can say about CU-ATSM right now. It's stalled. The company said no. Many of you have sent letters to the company, and that's what we need. We need pressure. And I believe, and Annie and I's hope in doing this documentary was to condense everything into one easily understandable package, and then offer that to Netflix or Amazon Video or Vice or some network to get this out here. Look, we're not looking to make a dime off of this. Okay, we're not going to ask you for money. That's not. You've already been asked for money enough. Okay, we're asking for your support and your time, and we ask that you choose wisely where you send your money. Okay, from now on, we want you to know that there are people out there who have your best interests at heart. I'm not going to really name names, because that creates bias. But there are organizations that expect nothing in return for what they do, and I do want to thank Gleason. Thank you, Team Gleason. You've proven that you know how to reply to emails, and within 4 or 5 minutes you get a phone call. You don't get back something that says click here to unsubscribe when you ask a hard question. Listen, this can be fixed. Okay, right now we're standing on the edge of greatness. I do not want to be one of the generation of pals who dies on the last corner of the race. And I know many of you do not. And I ask that you, if you are too sick, if you are too weak to help in this fight in a way that you feel is appropriate, then all I ask is that you consider who has your best interest at heart and where you choose to make your final request. Okay? Because if we don't give the money to the right people in this battle, it's never going to get fixed. It's just going to continue. Or if we don't ask for accountability, nothing's going to change. So I want to thank you for watching our first webcast. I'm sure Annie will be getting tons of hate mail. I'm sorry for that, Annie. So just get ready. What you've done is spectacular. And I thank you for inviting me to be part of the team. And we thank all of you out there who we urge you to make sure you get everybody that you know to subscribe. This right down here on Facebook, Contagious for a Cure. Okay? We're going to be doing these things regularly from now on because right now it's serious. I mean, we have the opportunity to make history right now. We will not be putting up fluffy slogans. You will not see that stuff here. You're going to see facts, you're going to see technology, and you're going to see solutions. The question is, can we get it done? And I don't know the answer to that yet, but I do know that right now people can be treated who have ALS, and we're going to prove that to you. We're not going to tell you that and just walk out the door. We're going to show you. And this piece right here that I want to show you now is going to hopefully do that. I can't give you an exact date. Just check back and understand that we're working as hard as we can on this to get it done. And it will be done. And when it is done, we urge everybody to please share. Join this right here. This place right here is where you need to be. I know we've got over 7,000 or about 7,000 followers, and we want to see that number up to 10 or 15,000 over the next few days. Please share this video and ask everybody in the ALS community to join. Whether or not you don't like Annie or me, listen, we're on your side, okay? We're all one big family here. We love you all. We do. We're doing this for you. We're doing this for us, and we're doing this for you. So please get on board. I mean, at least have an open mind. That's all we're saying, okay? Some of the things we're going to say are going to be controversial, and you know what? That's how things get solved. We can have real discussions without making it personal, okay? We can be adults. We can have aggressive discussions. It doesn't mean that, we're kicking your dog in the face. Like I like to say, we're just throwing teddy bears here. That's all we're doing. We're not going after anybody personally, okay? But we are going to ask for accountability, and we hope that you will start to do the same, okay? Because until we ask for accountability, nothing's going to change. It's going to be the same old, okay? So, Annie, anything else you want to say? And then let's get out of here. It's been an hour. Can you believe it? It's already been 1 hour.
I know. Love everybody and love all the support that comes so graciously from you all, and know that that's who we have in our minds is everybody, and all the little guy charities that have carried all the load for so long. You guys need to finally be rewarded for carrying all the tier, everybody underneath the little guy. You're all amazing. I mean, underneath the big guy, you're all amazing. So you all need to be supported. Like Mike said, you guys have carried the load far too long. Well, and too long without a thank you.
And even those affiliated with the local ALSA groups, thank you for. There are some good ones out there.
Thank you for being so amazing. We know and they've done it.
They are, and thank you. We don't mean to. None of this beef is not there. It's with the strategic decision makers who have let us down. Okay,
and it can be changed. It can still be salvaged.
It can be, and to all the caretakers, to everybody who do the right thing every day, who fight the battles locally. Thank you. No matter what organization you have behind your name.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. We're not mad at you. It's just,
gosh, so grateful for you. So grateful, for the locals that have every day, for the people day to day that pick up for us and do the hard things and answer the hard, those.
That's right.
Thank you to everybody in the ALS community. Now's our time to get together. We have something now, you guys. We have a beginning. We have, that door isn't so tightly closed anymore. Let's open it for the whole world so that they can all see that they can help us get to that finish line.
Agreed.
So thanks you guys so much.
Thank you so much, and please subscribe, and we will be back. See you all later.